Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the United District podcast. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Bundesliga commentator Phil Bonney. Phil, it's a pleasure to have you on. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Plenty to talk about right now.
There is plenty to talk about. It's a very active summer. Obviously, we've got the Euros, as you can see by, if you're watching on YouTube, of course, you may be just listening and won't be able to see, but as you can see by Phil's backdrop, we are very topical at the moment with the Euros. Got the flags up. He's got the shirt on as well. I'm very impressed with that, showing off the three lines there. Good stuff. And we'll jump right in. We won't jump in on the Euros. We might head on to that in just a little while, but we'll start off with the Manchester United focus with the name. Obviously, the big link between the Bundesliga and Manchester United, of course, right now is that of Jadon Sancho, a transfer saga that seems to be coming to an end. I don't want to jinx things and talk as if we've signed him already, because it isn't done just yet. And it's been going for a couple of years now. But we'll start off by talking about him. And, Phil is in a better qualified place than many of us to talk about Sancho. So we'll get onto that. Phil, if you could just give us quite a general sort of overview of Sancho. What is your sort of insight and opinion on his style as a player, and how do you think he'll sort of fit in at Manchester United?
Well, Sancho is, as you quite rightly say, is his hot property right now, and has been for the last couple of seasons. He has got quality, lots and lots of it, and I think one of the biggest things I feel always worth mentioning is how young he still is. He's not. He can still improve even further. He's fast, he's intelligent, he's committed, but he is only human. That's something that people, I think, always need to remember. He had at the beginning of the season, had a real dive in his form. He wasn't setting anyone. There was no assists, no goals. Went through a bit of a bare patch, but young players must learn from that, and he bounced back superbly. His style, it's fast, it's tricks, it's flicks, it's a lack of fear. He'll take anybody on. That's not a problem at all. And he's become welded into that Dortmund front line, which has been fantastic this season. Only Bayern scored more goals than they did, I think. And who wouldn't want him in their side apart from Gareth Southgate?
Well, exactly, and we'll get onto that in just a moment, because obviously, he's not been used really at all, has he? Has he had a minute actually? I'm not sure. He hasn't.
6.
Oh, he's had 6. He's had 6. There you go, 6.
Yeah, we've been counting them over here.
Yeah, I bet. But yeah, no, obviously not been used at all. And we'll get onto that in a second. We've got a question here from Nad, who asks basically, which side does he play on? Because obviously at United we are looking to sign a right winger. We have been since the departure of Angel Di Maria, and we've been calling out for one, really. We know he can play there, but obviously he's played on the left as well, I gather. Where do you see his sort of his best side?
He plays mostly on the left, and that's where he impresses. And he cuts in, and normally Erling Haaland is waiting for him on the other side. Like with most wingers, I don't think there's a problem with him swapping wings. He's a natural winger, left or right, and I think that's one of those problems that would very quickly iron itself out. If he was put on the right, then he would play on the right, and I don't think there'd be much difference in the quality that he delivers.
Well, yeah, I think once you get him through the door, it's not a bad headache to have, really, is it? What side to play Jadon Sancho on? It's not the biggest problem when we've got, Rashford, etc., and other options as well. It's not too bad a thing to have. Obviously, one of the things that people have obviously credited him with is his creative nature. Obviously a lot of assists over the past few years, and obviously the goals have come with that as well. But we've got a question here from Ryan, who asks, in terms of creators in the Bundesliga over the past decade, where would you rank Sancho? How good of a creator is he really?
Well, that's a bit of a tough question, really, because that's like saying, is Pele better than Messi? Can you compare Maradona to Ronaldo? They're all kind of good in their own way. I mean, there have been some fabulous creators over the years in the Bundesliga. Ivan Rakitic and Thomas Muller is still going really very strong. But he's, of his time, if you just say since he's been in the Bundesliga, he's top 3. Creating, but De Bruyne has been in there. I say you can't ignore Thomas Muller, because although he's getting on a bit, aren't we all? He still produces the goods, and hopefully won't tomorrow night. But he's good, and he's had a great couple of seasons. But can you judge an entire career on a couple of seasons? I don't think you can. Will he have the same impact when he if he comes to the to the Premier League from the Bundesliga. You know, if I had a crystal ball, I'd be putting money on it. But there's nothing that I would say should stop him from doing more of what he's been doing at Dortmund. You've got to remember that Dortmund are. There's a lot of banter between the Premier League and the Bundesliga about it being a farmers' league. Okay, Bayern dominate, but if you took Bayern out of the equation, it's a very tight league indeed. And Dortmund are one of the top 4 sides in the Bundesliga. And in the same way as that Manchester United have to produce quality performances week after week, so do Dortmund. You have to beat the team that's in front of you. And these are sides that are going, not every year, but it was just a few seasons back where Bayern played against Dortmund in the final of the Champions League. Bayern are regular visitors there. I think they suffer as well by not being tested because they've only got really a couple of other sides in the Bundesliga that are going to give them a run for their money in Leipzig and Dortmund. Every now and then Wolfsburg and Gladbach will chip in as well. But I don't think there's any reason why Sancho wouldn't continue to be a major provider and assister of goals in the Premier League. And he is good. But I find the question a little hard to answer in those terms. But I mean, it's a valid question. Like, in the time I've been commentating the Bundesliga, 20 years, is he top 20? Probably, but 19th, 18th at the moment.
I mean,
there have been so many over the years. That's nearly 20 years that I've been commentating on the Bundesliga, but over the last 5 years, certainly top 5.
And that's the thing. He's still young as well, which I think, is a credit. Obviously, a lot of those players, Müller has obviously plied his trade for a long time in those leagues, and we don't know what. Well, Sancho still could ply his trade in the league for years. I'm not going to try. I'm going to stay very tentative with how I word things around that.
It's very, it's still up in the air. What I think Dortmund have done is they said, look, we can sell him to anybody at any time. It's just if you come with the right offer, we'll let him go. And obviously, I feel sure. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. If Sky offered me a major contract tomorrow, I'd leave the Bundesliga for the Premier League as well. But I love the Bundesliga, and I think Sancho does too. And that's a big thing as well. These are a lot of the time we're getting a lot of English players that are coming through, or American players coming through. Here in the Bundesliga is where they're getting their chance. Sometimes it doesn't work. If you look at Timo Werner, hasn't had the happiest of times since leaving for Chelsea. You look at Kai Havertz as well. Didn't start brilliantly, although that's starting to really roll for him now. And when you play for a side like Bayern or like Dortmund or like Manchester or Chelsea, you don't have a getting to know you phase. You have to hit the ground running and deliver the goods, because if you've just had a team pay £100 million for you, you better be darn good. And you better get in there and start scoring and assisting straight away, even if you're only coming on for the last half an hour off the bench. That's a massive pressure to put on any player. Obviously, they love it, but it is a big ask, a very big ask to come in. So, if it works at Dortmund, will it work at Manchester? The technical analysis of the people and the coaches there will have a lot more to do with whether or not he comes or whether the players are wanted or not, rather than what a commentator thinks of them. I mean, I can only commentate on the players he's taken on and beaten over the last few years, and there's quite a few of them.
No, absolutely, and we've seen. I'm sure United fans have all seen the clips of him going past people, which is obviously captured the imagination of us, what he could be doing down the flanks of Old Trafford next year, or hopefully so. So I'll ask you then, I was going to ask you a little bit later on actually about Werner and Havertz, who have obviously, come over, and, specifically Werner, perhaps has been, he's caught a lot of flack. I think that's fair to say, a lot of stick, a lot of criticism. I think Havertz to a lesser extent, obviously, scoring in the Champions League final does sort of help your stocks, I think, really, which hasn't done him any bad. Do you think players like that, those are the two most recent examples I can think of? What do you think of the sort of stylistic differences that you get from watching Bundesliga against the Premier League? Because a lot of people talk about a lot more space in the Bundesliga and behind. You see a lot of goals, Erling Haaland going in behind and driving through from the halfway line and goals like that. What kind of sort of stylistic differences sort of hit you straight away when you look at differences between the two leagues?
I think generally the Premier League is much faster. I wouldn't say it's generally harder in terms of how they go in on tackles. But I think the refereeing in the UK or in England and Germany is slightly different. I mean, I look at the internet and watch people's reactions to VAR in the UK, and it's a big difference over here. Generally, over here it works. It might not be sometimes as quick as they'd like, but generally, I get the feeling that people are okay with it. I must admit, at this point, I wasn't for it totally in the beginning. I mean, just to digress. I mean, I love the idea of if the ball's over the line, the referee gets a message to his watch or whatever. But the thing with VAR was so many people protested for so long about how come we live in this technological world where we can be watching Sky Sports and see that replay from 4 or 5 different angles. To see that it was onside, or to see that it was a foul, or to see that it was handball, and yet we can't use it in the on the pitch, as it were, for the actual decisions. And there was a massive, I won't say fan outcry, but there was a movement to get VAR instated. The football authorities listened to that, worked it out how it would work, and now everybody hates it because it interrupts things to get. And it must be said, a lot of the time it's a right decision. Especially over here, I realise in England there's still the jury's still out on that one, but a lot of the time it's the right decision. If you want to have that millimetre of your ankle offside and have it whistled against by having VAR, then you have to accept that. You have to take it on board. It's just my own personal feeling. I'm not coming out in favour of anybody here, but if you're going to complain about offside goals that could have won you the championship or didn't win you the championship or whatever, you still have to take the right answers with the ones that just seem like where they're just judging by the millimeter. The corner of his shoulder was playing the man on side. I mean, for me, that I hate that sort of thing. But it's, when nobody complains, the players when the ball screams in. Nobody complains, turns around and think, oh, well, we've just conceded, is one thing. But when they all put their hands up and go, oh, it's offside or whatever, that's a different thing. I don't know whether you could do it like they do with the American football, where both sides have got 3 challenges or something where they can have something checked. Maybe that would work. But again, that would take the steam out of the game. As a commentator, it's not fun because you'll shout your head off about a brilliant goal going in, and then you'll go, oh, no, wait. And the referee's there with his finger in his ear going, yeah. That big toe should have been, it was offside, so no goal. So I don't like that. I've digressed. Sorry, what was the original question?
That's right. I was just asking you the differences between, but actually, no, we will digress. I'll go back to that in a minute because actually I find it interesting what you're talking about there. I was going to ask you, with a commentator in the Bundesliga, how does your coverage of VAR differ? Because I know that in the Premier League, I'm aware that they get a very transparent view of what's going on and what they're checking. Whereas over the Euros, I think we've seen that commentators aren't perhaps seeing that, or at least I don't understand that they are. What's it like in the Bundesliga? Are you seeing what they're watching?
We generally play in because sometimes we are in the stadium and sometimes we're off tube. When we're off tube, we're actually in the same building as the referees are. They're a couple of floors below us, below ground in a concrete impenetrable bunker, because we don't want fans turning up and trying to remonstrate with the referees as to their correctness or incorrectness of their decisions. We do get, because I work for the DFL, I work for the German Football League. We have access to the decision process. So very often I'll be commentating from the television, but running on a laptop or a computer alongside me. There will be the page open where we'll see what they're checking for, but we'll also play it into the game. We'll actually see them running the scene backwards and forwards to get the result or the decision done. So we're kept in the loop, basically. Technically, we still don't have to like the decision. But it's who'd be a referee, eh? I mean, it's not my chosen profession. I certainly wouldn't like it. It's a tough one, I think. Because you only stand out really a lot if you're making some dodgy calls. But no, generally, I think VAR works for us in the Bundesliga a lot better than it does in the Premier League. But I mean, that's something that the Premier League need to look at rather than us. You know, personally, if it disappeared overnight, I wouldn't be too sorry. I like that whole unknown quality that football has. The fact that it is people, and obviously, the more football becomes more about money and results. I'm from Southampton. I support Southampton. So you're like, it's not going to affect us too much unless it's, are we going to get relegated on that or not? But it's interesting how much weight is then put on some of these decisions that the poor referees have to make. Because if they get it right and it's minimal, everyone sort of says, yeah, well, yeah. And if they get it wrong and it's minimal, then there's a huge outcry. So it's a bit of a poisoned chalice, I think, being a VAR ref.
No, I completely agree. I think it's interesting that you say there that it's generally, accepted and well used in the Bundesliga, because I think, whenever I've seen it, perhaps not in the Champions League, I think there's been a few instances perhaps in European football where there's been a few contentious decisions made with it. But other than that, the World Cup in 2018, I thought it was used brilliantly. I thought I think this Euros has been used very well. And as you say, Bundesliga, I think, people can sort of moan about the technology all they like, but I think at the end of the day, it's just showing you what happened. It's just camera. Do you know what I mean? It's just replays and cameras, and it's down to.
Yeah. Well, I thought that red card yesterday against Holland was that was one of those good examples of VAR. Yeah. That happens really quickly in front of a referee. Can you actually judge that he's deliberately scooping the ball out? It's hard when you just see it in a flash like that. But being able to have someone in your ear say, "No, you need to look at that because we think he did that deliberately. That should be a red card." And Netherlands fans will hate me, but I think it was the right decision. Hard though it is in major competition.
No, I'd agree, because I think he did. If you watch the clip back of Delict, he does try and play it off. He sort of goes down to ground and then a little swipe of the hand, which as you say, that sort of gamesmanship would have been, or cheating as some may call it, would have been not seen without the replays, of course. We'll go back on to Sancho then for a moment and back on something that we sort of touched on with the Euros. Obviously, as you say, six minutes, I think you said, on the pitch for Sancho, perhaps surprising as come off the back of the end of, well, he ended the season well, as we said, and he's done fantastic numbers at Dortmund over the past few years. So I think a lot of us were perhaps surprised with, maybe not just starting the first game, but just the lack of playing time in general. Have you been surprised by that, or were you?
I've been totally surprised that they haven't used him at all. He's got one of the most expensive tags in Europe, and Gareth Southgate's thinking, plays in the Bundesliga. What's that? Yeah, it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous that they haven't used him at all. I'd have thrown him on against Croatia. Do you know the game probably I wouldn't play him against is against Germany. I'd then possibly only bring him on for the last 20 minutes or so, because they know him, they know what he can do, they know what he's capable of. They've had briefings on how to stop him. Hummels plays with him at Dortmund. They know each other. So that's probably the one where I wouldn't have minded so much if they didn't bring him on, or maybe just for the last 20 minutes when everybody else is tired. But I'd have certainly played him against some of the other sides, certainly against the Czech Republic and the team from the north of the border.
I don't know who you're referring to. But I think, do you not think it goes the other way with Sancho as well? Because I saw an interview with Marcus Rashford just before we started recording this, where he said that Sancho could be key against Germany because of the fact he knows them in going that way as well. Do you think that it works both ways?
I think it does. I think you're absolutely right. Who's to say not? I was just trying to sort of say I could understand if Gareth Southgate was thinking maybe they'll know him and be able to shut him down a bit more. On the other hand, as you quite rightly say, Sancho knows the Germany side, knows most of the players that he's up against there, has played either with them or against them at some point. So he might actually be the ace up the sleeve. Personally, that would be, for me as a real Bundesliga fan, it would be an absolute highlight if he came on in the last 20 minutes, scored the winning goal. Wouldn't be against that at all.
Neither would I. I absolutely love it. United's own. Maybe you shouldn't say that. Not yet. But I think again against Germany, obviously, they play with the wing backs as well, don't they? That come quite hard. Obviously, Robin Gosens was incredible, specifically against Portugal, and I think Sancho could exploit that, don't you think? I think he's a bit more direct than the likes of Foden.
I think they do, because Germany don't play with three at the back very well. It's not something they relate to. It's wobbly. and they had a good game against Portugal. The same way is that, I haven't really been floored by England's performances. They've been solid and reserved, and I've been saying this week. It's actually been a bit of a sort of a role reversal. England have been playing like the old Germany in the 80s, sort of just casually strolling through the group stage without really breaking sweat, and they haven't really got out of second gear. I had the feeling, even in the game against Croatia, which was the big one. I felt I need to see something from England this time, otherwise they won't get past Germany, because Germany are Germany. And they don't forget that. They will have and they've got, Germany, of course, have got some brilliant players as well. I mean, Gnabry is fantastic. Kimmich is out of this world. Muller just keeps being Muller. There's no defining him really. What worries me for Germany is that they haven't got a striker up front, and I think that bothers them too. They don't like the three at the back, and they don't like the fact they haven't got a central man in the middle. There's no Mario Gomez, no Miroslav Klose or somebody of that ilk to target them there. I mean, they can score goals. They showed that against Portugal, but I still think it's normally Germany are much more judgment than luck, and they've been riding their luck and good fortune. I wouldn't say luck, but good fortune.
It's not the Germany of old, is it? I don't think. I think that's fair to say. Well, we could say this: we get a knocks out, and then they go on and win the whole tournament. But in general, from what we've seen so far, I would say it's not the Germany of old. That we've all become accustomed to. Obviously, as you say, closer and players like that, smashing in goals and dominating teams. But we'll see. Obviously, it all comes down to tomorrow. And if there's
I've got the benefit because I've got dual nationality. So if England do get knocked out, I can still get behind Germany because England are out.
Yeah, so tear that flag down and put that one.
Just the one. Just creep the one across this way or the one across that way.
That's it. Lovely stuff. No, I don't blame you. But I was going to say, if there's ever a time they don't need a reminding of their roots, I think it's against us, really. I'm sure Southgate's pains of 96 will still be playing on his mind, and hopefully some sort of redemption story there in the making.
Well, I thought Gary Lineker was very good today on Twitter when he said, yes, Germany have beaten England in tournaments, and yes, England have beaten Germany in tournaments. But this isn't any of those tournaments. This is a new tournament, fresh players, fresh attitudes, and neither side's going to want to lose. Both appreciate the massive occasion, and hopefully we'll get a good game. We normally do between the two of them. And I've lived out here for 26 years, so I've been through everything. I've still got the 5-1 from 2001 shirt, just on the wall there around the corner. But normally it's a good game between the two of them, and hopefully it will be this time with the right result.
Where will you be watching it, Phil? In a pub? Will you brave it in a pub?
Oh yeah, I'll be out. But you've got to remember, I'm not alone here. There's
of course,
Cologne is only in a car I can make it back to Southampton in about 7 or 8 hours pre-pandemic. It's not too far from here to back to Blighty. But no, there's quite a few immigrants living over here that have been here for some time. I'm one of many, and that we'll all be meeting up. It's just quite funny actually, because there'll probably be quite a few of the commentators that work for the Bundesliga on it. So that's always entertaining is watching a football game when none of us is getting paid to talk, but they'll be talking.
Talking throughout. That's it.
Just getting a word in edgeways is awesome.
Yeah. Brilliant. Moving away from Sancho then and from the Euros for a moment, we've got a question here from Adit, who asks, regarding the Bundesliga, which young Bundesliga talents can you see playing in the Premier League in the future? Although it's obviously a very hard question to answer, but to maybe generalise it, which young players have impressed you, and they might move to the Premier League at some point?
Do you know? I mean, young, exciting players. Jamal Musiala, for one, is fantastic, but you're not going to prize him out of Bayern in the near future, I don't think. One I could see, although it's his birthday tomorrow, and he'll probably be getting a nice fat contract from Dortmund, is Jude Bellingham. And Bellingham, for me, is probably one of the best young players around at the moment anywhere. Dare I say it? Although I was kind of brought into this on the Jadon Sancho thing. I think Jude Bellingham could be even bigger than Sancho. The maturity, the way he plays, how he's built at 17 and 364 days old. he's 18 tomorrow, is phenomenal, and he's had more. We've seen him play for England more minutes this tournament than Sancho, and I think he's going to be huge. And if he continues at his current development and his attitude, as I said, his maturity, his vision, absolutely. I'm a big fan. You probably guessed. But Bellingham is one of those that's absolutely massive. Who else would I say? Very possibly Gio Reyna from Dortmund as well is another one of those. Christian Pulisic or Pulisic, depending on how you want to say that. We talked about that before we started recording the names. Pulisic is a prime example of what could happen to Gio Reyna. Erling Haaland is another one who knows where he goes. I mean, in the Bundesliga, we get the benefit of seeing him week after week. And he's the real deal too. And he's very young and very keen. His work rate is phenomenal. His sprinting is, you need a small motorbike to keep up with him when he's in full run. He's really good too. I mean, it's all to do with Dortmund, and in a way, it's for them the same way in the Premier League. Like, as I said, I'm a Southampton supporter. You come to a point where you have to realise that every now and then you're going to do well, and that will mean basically the death knell of any chances you've got of doing anything, because Liverpool will come in and take 5 of your players over 2 or 3 years. I just thought I'd mention that another time. So Kevin Hatchard accused me of being bitter and not letting it go, but Van Dijk and Lallana and Mane, and the list is endless. I saw Luke Shaw as well as another one, but he went somewhere else, another team playing red. I don't know. But, we've had our great players over the years, and at a certain point you have to balance that out, and I think that's what Dortmund will do. Do they let Sancho, Bellingham, and Haaland go? And if they do, how much? Because that is one of the big problems. Somebody else I noticed, we were talking about the differences between the Premier League and the Bundesliga, and of course, money is the major factor. And it's the same in the Bundesliga. Bayern have got all the resources, got all the money. Why wouldn't you want to play for them? If you're going to win Champions Leagues, if you're going to win the title, do the double, win the cup, win the Super Cup. They won six titles in the space of a calendar year. Just recently. What would you rather do? Would you rather be there or stay here at Cologne and become a legend, playing for Cologne your entire career, up and down, second division, back again? That's an option that people take too. Matt Letizia, politics aside, but his playing days, absolute legend. And there are very few like that. Giggsy, of course. Steely Gerrard. There are players that do that sort of thing. Scholes as well, I should mention. And then you've got the others that become legends that aren't. Alan Shearer, given up by Newcastle when he was 16, said he wasn't going to go anywhere. Southampton picked him up. I saw his first game, scored a hat-trick against Arsenal, if I remember rightly. Or was that Letizia? Yeah, it was one of the two, but they were brilliant together. And then he goes off to Blackburn and then back to Newcastle. But this is what Dortmund, I think, have to work out is, how much are we a selling club? How much do we want to achieve? Because they're not a selling club like Southampton are a selling club. Dortmund are a side that have played Champions League finals, and that is a big difference. But you've got to have people coming through, and I think a lot of teams are being cagey right now. They're waiting to see what happens after the Euros. They don't want to either give up their players or look for other players until they've seen actually what's out there. I think there's going to be an even bigger flurry of transfers once the Euros is over.
I think it's interesting you talk about there the sort of the balancing act of bringing through players to keep a successful team going and selling to get money back in. I think Dortmund have done that quite well, really. I'm sure you'd agree with that. They sort of had that one era of, Lewandowski played for that side of 2013 that obviously reached the Champions League final, and obviously they're now with a completely different team and have now got another batch of successful players. Is that something that you think they've done well over the years? Do you think that's down to recruitment, or you?
It is. A lot of it is down to recruitment. Although they've picked a couple of turkeys every now and then. But look at the other players that Aubameyang's come and gone. Alcacer has come and gone. He was brilliant for a season, and then he just got eclipsed. And the sort of true reflection in it, and Bayern fans will hate me for saying this, is the fact that they basically came and stripped Hummels and Lewandowski out of the side. They're actually right now, I was reading earlier on that Julian Brandt is also possibly up for a transfer as well. And when he joined from Leverkusen, I thought that was a brilliant coup for them, because he was and had been playing absolutely fantastically for Leverkusen. But he hasn't had the kind of impact that he would have hoped there. So maybe he's looking for something new. And that, I mean, again, that's one of those things that we talked about earlier, and possibly before we started recording, is that, you know, the guarantee that Jadon Sancho comes to Manchester United and is an instant hit isn't 100% one. It's you very often find players that come, you know, Bayern are a classic example of buying players at the top of their game, like Lucas Podolski, and then their kind of career had peaked by that time because they just didn't get the game time. And how much is Jadon Sancho prepared to sit on the bench at Manchester United? That is always a troublesome thing. When Bayern won the treble back in 2013, I think it was, and they had players like Ribéry and Robben that were on the bench and coming on and off. It worked for a season, but after that season, nobody wants to sit on the bench. So game time might be also a factor in that whole thing.
No, definitely. And just going back onto what you're sort of talking about there, you know, the idea of Bayern, you know, they are the powerhouse of the league with, you know, with regards to financials and, you know, and history as well, really, with all that they've won over the years. Do you think the criticism of Bundesliga, the idea that Bayern sort of monopolised the league, do you think that's a fair criticism? And do you think there could or should be steps to change that? Obviously, the 50+1 rule is in place in the Bundesliga. Do you think that is a fair criticism, though, of the Bundesliga?
It is a criticism. If it's fair or not, I don't know. Because if just to kind of reverse it, I've saved up all my money that I've ever earned, and I bought myself a mansion with a swimming pool. And you're just starting out, and you've bought yourself a council house. And now you're expecting me to go and live in a council house. I've got this house because I worked hard for it and got all my money. I don't want to live in a 2-up, 2-down terrace. You know, I want my leftover. I mean, I suppose that's a pretty stupid way of describing it, actually. But apologies to anybody who lives in a council house. I've lived in a council house before. It's one of those things. How can you take the money away from Bayern? Can you tell them they're only allowed to spend so much because Bochum have only got so much? If you want to do that, you can do that. But I used to be a big fan of when I was much younger of Formula One. And then Michael Schumacher won just about everything. And then somebody came up with a brilliant idea of Formula A or whatever it was, where everybody had the same car, was only allowed to do the same things to it. And do you know what? Nobody was interested in it at all. It's just, I mean, do you watch? Would you? No, because people want to see, the Bayern fans and the Man United fans want to see Southampton getting beaten 9-0. Oh, no, that was the other Manchester. Never mind. Oh, and Leicester as well. Yeah, I forgot about them. But you know what I mean? You need, and with success comes money and a name, and players want to play there. You know, if you offered a player the chance to play at Bayern or Bochum, I pretty much guess that Bayern would win out every time. Better wages, better chances of winning things, even if you do have to sit on the bench for half the game. So I think, yes, it is a fair criticism. Bayern have got all the money, they've got all the resources, they've got success, everything they could want. They are one of the major sides in Europe. But shall we just make it fair and then have everybody do it that way? It won't work. It's totally impractical. You can't do it. You couldn't even introduce the 50+1 rule into the Premier League. Wouldn't work, because people, hang on, I've paid all my money into this club. I own this club. You're going to tell me now that I can't own this club? It's the free market economy and all that sort of thing that I have absolutely no idea about. wouldn't put up with it.
Yeah, no, it's
the
true.
Germany flag's just fallen down. Is that an omen?
Oh, I beg that's a sign. I really do. If for anyone who's not watching, the Germany flag has just come down. Phil's just putting
it has, because I leant against it. But
let's pretend you didn't lean against it and it just fell down.
It fell down on its own.
On its own, yeah.
You never know. I mean, I love Germany. I'm a big fan of the Bundesliga, as you probably guessed.
Yeah.
Fabulously exciting league. Full houses. There's another difference. The fan culture over here is a completely different kettle of fish than it is to what goes on in the UK. Fans very involved on a political as well as a decision making side of things. You can afford to take a family of 5 here every week or every other week and still have change out of 100. You can drink on the terraces. There's absolutely full. Okay, some of the sides that are doing poorly don't necessarily have full houses every week, but when you go to any Bayern game, they're always sold out. Dortmund, you're going to be in a full stadium with quite a lot of atmosphere in a lot of cases. It's not the same as being in the UK. It isn't. It's not the same as the Premier League, but there is a lot of buzz around the game. I mean, the pandemic has been absolutely horrible for all of us, whether in Germany or Spain, France, England. The fact that we've had an announcement today that if things stay the way they are, there's going to be 18,000 allowed in the stadium for the first game of the season between Gladbach and Bayern. I've had little tears in my eyes watching the Euros when there's been like a full, whether or not it's sensible or not is another case, but seeing fans in the stadiums, we forget what we've lost really.
Massively. No, I think
it's going to be different.
I think that's one of the things that a lot of people do, hugely praise, is that Germany have got it right with the way, as you said, the culture, just the way they, as you said, beers on the terraces and, full stadiums and people seeing the yellow wall at Dortmund and whatever else, that always gains praise. And I think, rightly so, whenever I see clips of it, I can't say I've ever experienced it myself, unfortunately. I would like to one day, but it does, it's very inspiring to see. It's very pure, if you know what I mean by that, with regards to
it is quite an amazing experience to go to a game day in Germany. And those of us that work in the industry, we're all kind of a little bit blasé over time. Is that whenever I go to the stadium, I always try and go via public transport and then walk up the stadium way to just get a feel of how the crowd are, what the atmosphere is like, and it can be really exciting. Like if you go, sadly, Schalke no longer in the top flight. They got relegated at the end of last season, but they're right on the border with Holland, with the Netherlands, and a lot of Netherlands fans come in to watch the games at Schalke. So you hear Dutch and you hear all the different languages on the way to the stadium, and it. People's lives revolve around stadium day. They start. They're in the pubs at 10 o'clock. Also in the UK, I mean, I know that as well, but it's so much a part of life. Not being able to do that over the last year and a bit has impacted on lots of us. I'm fairly sure, but it's Leon Goretzka said it brilliantly. The area where he's from the area of Bochum. And there's been a lot of discussions about racism and everything in football. Of course, there has recently, and he said it's never been an issue with us because we don't ask where I come from. You don't ask what religion you are. You just ask whether you're Dortmund, Schalke, or Bochum, and that's pretty much it. It's just like up in the north, the northeast, northwest. There, it's a Liverpool, Manchester, or Manchester.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, no, it's.
You haven't got a lot of leeway to go one way or the other, but no. So yeah, I love the Bundesliga. I love the atmosphere. It's exciting. Bayern do get beaten by bottom of the table sides. Is some people say that's another Farmers League indication or whatever. I don't think it is so much. Sometimes Bayern can be very I wouldn't say arrogant, but they'll turn up thinking all they've got to do is turn up and this is going to be a walkover. But of course, like with yourselves, like with Manchester United, everybody gets up for a game against Manchester United or Liverpool or one of the big six. So yeah, the Bundesliga is it's alive and kicking, is what it is. We don't even claim to be the top league in Europe, but I certainly think we're above the Italian league. Spain we can talk about. Premier League probably in front. It is a different It is a different league, as you say. Somebody wrote that, you know, the differences. The Premier League, basically, because of the money, and let's face it, it's the money.
Yeah.
You get the best players.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Big bucks, you get good players. It is quite simple as that. You know, why would you earn? This is something else I heard a couple of seasons back. I can't remember the exact team. It was somebody that used to be on the bench at Bremen, went to, I think it was a championship side, and said, I am more sitting on the bench in the championship side than I did playing for Bremen. Yeah. So you've got to put those kind of it's market forces as well. Why, as I said to you, if Sky came in, offered me twice what I'm earning here with the Bundesliga, I'd seriously have to think about it, because it is a different league in those terms. But to say, you know, one's better than the other, well, you know, if I say to you, if you get on your tricycle and pedal as hard as you can, you might just be able to beat me in my Ferrari.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true.
And every season that trick, if you like, is played out. Bayern convince all the other sides in the top league that they have a chance. Some seasons they do. The last 9, it has been closer on a couple of occasions. Yeah. But generally Bayern have run away with it. But every now and then they develop a, you know, problem with the carburetor. But still, at the end of the day, you know, to turn around and say, well, look, in England, it happened. Leicester did it. Leicester managed it without the massive, you know, millions of pounds of transfers. And yeah, okay, once in 100 years. So yeah, they are different. They are different leagues. I don't think you compare them. Again, it's like trying to compare Pelé and Messi. Yeah, both great.
Yeah, they've all got different
circumstances.
Different leagues have all got different cultures, haven't they? And different speed. It's completely different, you know, on every level, really, isn't it? It's hard to correlate between the two. And obviously, the only time we get the comparisons between the two are when the top sides meet in Europe, really, or as we're going to see tomorrow, you know, in European Championship games or World Cup games or whatever it may be. So moving on then, just one last little topic to talk about. Just want to ask about your career, really, and get a bit more sort of insight on that. How did you sort of end up getting into commentary? Was it something you always wanted to do and something that you studied to do? No, I was shaking the head there.
No. I've been I was football mad since I was born. Like, I'm sure loads and loads of people that are in any way involved or watching this. I've always, you know, one of my first memories is kicking a ball against the wall. My granddad throwing the ball up so I could head it over and over again, or trap it, or pass it back to him. I was never good enough to be a professional, but I mean, I still play twice a week now. I'm 56. Still play 5-a-side, or sometimes there's a few more aside, like 8 or 9 aside in a small sort of half-size pitch. Always been a football nut, and at one crucial point in my life, I was in the right place at the right time with the right skill set. I trained to be an actor, believe it or not. I trained at one of the best known theatre schools in London, which involved all sorts of things, not just theatre, but working in radio, television, all the various different disciplines. Obviously, talking was one of the one of the ones I was good at. You mentioned earlier on I was doing the accent, but you know, that's one of the things that you pick up along the way. But when I moved to Germany in 1994, after working as on the theatre side of things for quite a while, I also worked as a voiceover artist, because of course, living abroad, anybody that produces anything that wants to be sent out worldwide, English has got to be one of the soundtracks on there. You know, it's all right, you make it for the German public, but you also need it to go to Africa or America or the UK. So English there's always something to be recorded. I was doing a lot of work with the Deutsche Welle, which is a bit like the German version of the BBC World Service. Okay. It belongs to the government. It's sending out not only news channels, but documentaries and things like that. And I was doing a lot of work for them. And one of the guys that was working as a director there when I was doing the voiceovers was a gentleman called Toby Charles, who's quite well known in the States. And he was working and had been since the 70s, I think, working on the for the Bundesliga. And we always talk football. He's a big Gladbach fan, by the way. Borussia Mönchengladbach. We always talk football. And then one day he just said to me, he said, look, I know that they're looking for someone. Do you think you could do it? And I said, yeah, I think I could. So I did basically what was an audition. And they loved it. And I started pretty much the next Saturday. It was a massive stroke of fortune. Yeah. And over the years, I've had the good fortune to be in the right place at the right time more often than that. When Robert Lewandowski scored his 5 goals in 9 minutes, that was on my watch, and that went around the world.
Yeah, iconic that coming through.
You've seen that one. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, some people are on the pitch, they think it's all over. He had his moment there, Mr. Wolstenholme, and the German guy in the 50s that did the sort of the German equivalent when Germany, the Wunder von Bern, when they won it for the first time after the Second World War. If you're lucky as a commentator, you have a moment like that. The only sad thing is maybe that was my moment. Maybe I'm not going to have any more iconic stuff. It's a bit like panning for gold. You live in hope, and hope you respond well at the time, because there's nothing worse than nothing going on in the game, and you think, now, was it 4 or 5 games he's played for England? You look down at your notes and he smashes it in from 40 yards, and you go, "Oh, that was a goal then." And that can happen too. Commentators, just like footballers, we can have bad days too. So that's how I ended up working for the Bundesliga, and it was a stroke of luck. I mean, obviously you've got to have the right skill set to be able to kind of slot into that sort of thing. But as you can probably guess, talking isn't much of a problem for me, and getting a word in edgeways for anybody I'm talking to is generally a bit of a problem. A big portion of fortune was involved, and timing.
Like with anything, though, isn't it? Really, it's always that always comes into play. I'm curious. What would an audition for commentary entail? Was it actually?
Oh, this is brilliant. If you want the full story, I was trying to keep it short, but
no, I really
find that a bit difficult.
Yeah, go on. I would like to hear.
They said to me, right, we want to do a sort of audition, but what you do is you get a tape, go to a studio, get a tape of a game. You can have seen it beforehand, they said.
Yeah.
Then we'll send you a tape, and then you just kind of tape over the top and send it back to us. So I said, fair enough. I said, but I'm not going to do that. I will take a game, obviously, that's already happened, because I wanted to do it sort of fairly close to when they asked me to do the audition. I knew what the score was, but I didn't know when the goals came. And then what was really rather bizarre was, once they sent me the tape, it didn't actually have any atmosphere on it. So there was no crowd, there was no singing, there was no kicking the ball. It was just a completely wiped tape, except for the pictures.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's horrible. No kind of atmosphere at all to it. And my friend who's got this buddy of mine who's got the studio, he said, I'll sort it. And so he put a tape or the audio of another game on there. So they're cheering in the wrong place and they're shouting the wrong names. So the actual game I commentated was Bremen against Bayern. And the fans are all singing about Hamburg, which is a bit weird, but at least it had some atmosphere. So then I taped that without looking at it. I mean, I prepared for it like I would prepare for any sort of game now today. I've refined it a bit over the last 20 years, but I researched the game pre-game about the players and where they were in the league and all that sort of stuff that one does as a commentator. And then I just did it. No stops, just straight through. And I, told them, I didn't stop, to make it pretty or anything. If I flubbled a word, then I flubbled a word. And they liked it. So I got the job.
That's interesting. That it reminds me of the sort of, the layering of crowd noise on now, which I'm sure sort of reminded you of that, really, especially when in the early days of the pandemic, when they were cheering in the wrong places and pressing the buttons at random times.
We have to give those people their fair due, though, because they did a lot better. I mean, over here, they got better at it as it went along. And the weird thing is, this, because I'm a commentator, but I'm also a football fan, and I like football. And I like, one of the great things about my job is that I like football, and I like good football. And although there are sides that I follow from time to time, I mean, I'm based in Cologne, so pretty much Cologne are the side that I follow most closely. They play in red and white. They're as good as Southampton. I feel at home. We're often, in danger of getting relegated, all that sort of stuff. But when I'm commentating, having the fake crowd in my ear was actually comforting.
Yeah.
And when I was in the stadium and it was just echoing, and the sound of the players communicating and the bench communicating, whilst it's interesting a bit, I mean, co-coms were absolutely delighted by the whole thing. And I'm working with drop a name here, drop a name there, but like Stefan Freund, Patrick Vermeulen, they all think that that's marvelous because you can hear what they're saying. And on a player's scale, I'm sure that is really incredibly exciting. But I like the boos and the whistles when someone sort of falls over, pretends that they're injured, all that sort of thing. And so for me, it was a bit like a safety blanket having that in my ear, because I'm concentrating on statistics and what's coming through on the live stuff from Opta and all that sort of things, plus all the various other bits of information you have to give out. But as a fan watching it, hated it.
The fake crowd noise.
Yeah, hated it.
No, I've got to be honest, at the beginning, I was not a fan of it at all because I was just aware that it was fake. I think that's what it was to me, and then it didn't seem to have any real substance to it. But I've got to be honest, I did warm to it, I think, a bit later on, because, as you say, it does give a bit of something. And obviously, as you say, with you commentating, you want a backdrop for you to sort of work with, really, don't you? I'm sure.
Yeah, and they did get really, really much better with it towards the end. And I fear that we haven't seen the last of it or heard the last of it, but you never know. I mean, yeah, it's a bit like methadone crowd, really. It's not the real thing, you know. You know, you're getting a fake version, but it's better than nothing. I feel when I'm working.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One last question then. And you know, it's been a pleasure talking to you. But I was going to ask you, and this is a really tough question. We've had journalists on in the past that I've asked this question, and I've actually tweaked it now because I think, you know, everyone struggles with it. I was going to ask what your favourite moment has been throughout your career in commentary, but everyone seems to struggle with that. If you have got one, fair enough. I was going to say
I have.
Oh, we have. Go ahead.
I have. My personal favourite of me commentating is Lewandowski's 5 goals in 9 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a perfect run from him, and it was one of those commentaries where I wasn't checking something or missed anything. I was with it the whole way. In fact, it wasn't in the stadium, it was commentated, it was off tube, and I was on my feet the entire time after he started scoring in that second half. It was the most breathtaking 9 minutes of my footballing life, apart from ball is laid forward to Bobby Stokes hits it. 1-0 Southampton. Bye Manchester United. I swore I'd get that one in when I was talking to you. Now, I mean, but that's on. You see, that's on a different level. That's on, as a fan level, that's the biggest moment that my football club has ever had in their entire history. I think you'll agree. You know, you've won so many cups you can't even remember which years you got to the finals, I'm sure. But the Lewandowski for me was it was a big moment, in as much as it also kind of established my voice around the world as well. People were calling it in from Peru and Thailand, where they'd heard me. And I'm very lucky to have been, again, right place, right time, and hopefully with the right skill set to make it a memorable moment.
Well, I think it's fair to say you did indeed have that skill set and did produce that moment. I think that's a unanimous call from anyone who's heard that bit of commentary. And if you haven't, I implore you to go, and I'm sure most of the listeners have heard it, but I implore them to go and watch it, because it is a truly brilliant bit of commentary. I'll be honest, I love watching great commentary. Like, I don't know, I think a lot of people do, football fans, just go on YouTube and watch best commentary, because I don't know, there's something about it, just the emotion and stuff. Obviously, you know, we don't like to talk about it much on this podcast, but obviously, you know, you've got Martin Tyler Aguero moment and moments like, actually, I'll ask you that just as one last extra thing. Have you got a favourite piece of commentary that isn't your own, or another just in general throughout history that sticks out to you as something that, you know, maybe inspired you or was
well, I suppose, I mean, when you think of my generation, I'm as I say, I'm 56, nearly 57 this year. The 66 goals. I mean, as an Englishman, you can't get anything more iconic than that. I fear. It is just if I had to, you know, desert island commentary, just that one phrase, meaning so much, and we've been striving for it ever since. Living here in Germany, of course, whenever the two sides meet up, it has a whole different meaning, because everybody, although I speak German with with an English accent. So everybody knows who I am. I play football here, as I said, twice a week, with a real big mix of people from all over the world. So football here is as much as football is there. You know, I feel sorry for the Germans in the UK right now, because they're doing exactly what I'm doing. You know, you love both sides. I mean, it's one of those, I think it's one of those maturity things, just if I can keep your attention just a little bit longer. When I was a kid, 15, 16, 17, I liked one sort of music, and all other sorts of music was rubbish. And how can you like that? It's all crap. And as you get older, you realize that, you know, you can like as much a piece of Led Zeppelin as you can a piece of La Bohème, the opera, or a piece of Haydn classical music, because it's all music and it's all gorgeous. And I'm the same. It's taken me years and years and years to get to the point where it's not, as an Englishman, we have to, you know, we're rivals with Germany, not enemies. Okay, I live here, so I'm probably I have a different view, but then I have lived here, and that does give you a different view. I've lived nearly as long in both countries, respectively. I love football. I love good football. I'd take a dirty 1-0 tomorrow. I really would. But it doesn't stop me going into this tournament. I wanted England and Germany to meet in the finals. That would have been perfect for me. And then to have us beat them on penalties, that would have been even better, because then at least I could walk around here with my head held high.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I fear most is a horrible back pass that goes through Pickford's legs or something. You know, I can deal with the losing and I can deal with the banter. It's just how you lose. If you're going to lose, let's lose by giving absolutely everything we've got, sticking it to them. And if they get a lucky punch goal, then they get a lucky punch goal. However, if England are then out, I can still get behind my second team. I can still have a bit of fun with Germany because I like football.
Yeah.
Some people won't understand that and think it's slightly traitorous, but I'm all up for a good clash. You know, I was hoping that maybe England, Italy in the final. That'd be exciting. But if it's Germany, Italy, that'll be exciting too. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that's a bit of an upside for you, isn't it? You've got someone in the quarterfinals out of the two.
Whatever happens, there's a side in the quarterfinals. But as I've been saying to I've just actually the phone's been going off. People, more interviews want to talk to me. More German television companies want to talk to me. The other option, that the downside of it is I can get upset twice.
Yeah,
I've got two teams that can let me down.
That's true. That's very true. Double the pain.
Double the disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know a lot about that, about specifically as England fans, we do. So hopefully tomorrow we don't get that. Hopefully we don't get, a Lampard-esque ghost goal or that crosses the line but isn't given.
No, that we're done with that now, because they had the one that shouldn't have been a goal, possibly in 1966, although they do forget the fourth. They forget the fourth goal over here quite a lot. And they had the Lampard one as well. But let's hope that justice is done, the best team wins, and failing that, England 1-0 dirty.
I'd love that. Last thing, Phil, prediction. Would you dare give a prediction for this game?
Yeah, 2-0 England.
We love to hear it. We love to hear that. Phil, it's been
on paper they're better. I just think on paper they're better. Germany are a bit shaky at the moment. However, if we get slapped, cut this last bit out, will it?
Oh yeah, this will be. Phil, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. I don't know if you've got any last words, any social media you want people to follow, or anything else.
Well, on Twitter it's Phil _ Bundesliga. Bundesliga Phil. Sorry, Bundesliga _ Phil on Twitter. I do have an Instagram account, but I don't really update it that much, normally on match days, but I'm having a bit of a break at the moment, so you might not see so much on there. But thank you for inviting me on. There's always a special place in my heart for Manchester United, in as much as 1976, those were the side. And I'll just leave you with one of the moments where I wasn't against Manchester United.
Yeah, go on.
The Champions League final against Bayern. I was so out of it by the end of the evening, because everywhere we went, being English, people bought us drinks. Well done, congratulations, because Bayern München are not that popular up in this part of Germany. So,
oh, really? Fantastic.
So I had a very good night out on Manchester United that evening, and it was a big surprise and a big shock, and that was a win that reverberated around the football walls. Finally, a German side that got done in the last couple of minutes by some late goals. Praying for that tomorrow.
Oh, we can beg, we can pray, we can do all of that. We'll see how it goes. Phil, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure.